My biological parents, now in their late 50s, unexpectedly reached out to me when I was 23 after nearly 11 years of complete silence. It happened shortly after my older sister was ordered by a court to stay in a secure psychiatric treatment center. Now, my parents want to reconnect, but I honestly don't know if I'm ready for that. To understand the situation, I need to go back a bit. There were originally 3 children in our family. My older brother died from a serious illness when he was only 2 years old. At the time, my mother was pregnant with me, and my sister was 4. Losing him devastated my parents, and after that, they became terrified of losing another child. From an early age, my sister showed worrying signs. She struggled to connect with other children, was suspicious of everyone around her, and could suddenly explode with anger. Around the age of 9, she started behaving cruelly toward animals. By the time I was about 5, her aggression had turned toward me. I grew up living in fear. Sometimes she would spend hours talking to herself or accuse me of things that had never happened. She insisted she could hear me saying things through walls or claimed she had seen me doing things I had never done. There were also moments when she tried to hurt me using dangerous objects. My parents begged me to keep everything secret. Whenever teachers or other adults noticed bruises, scratches, or asked why I constantly looked exhausted, my parents would make up stories and tell me to repeat them. They would cry and say they couldn't survive losing another child. I was terrified that they would hate me if I told the truth. My mother's relatives knew that something wasn't right in our house. One day, my sister did something horrifying to a family pet belonging to one of our relatives. After that, most of them simply distanced themselves from our family. Whenever I tried asking for help and admitted that I was afraid of my sister, almost nobody listened. When I was around 12, things became even worse. My sister had started hurting herself and constantly carried sharp objects with her. One day, she became furious over something insignificant. My parents never warned me, and when I came home from school, she attacked me. I ended up in the hospital. That was the first time social services learned what had been happening inside our home for years. I finally told them everything. I was temporarily removed from my parents' care, and eventually my paternal grandparents took me in. Until then, they had known almost nothing about my life. There was a huge conflict between them and my parents, but I wasn't directly involved. From that moment on, I never spoke to my parents again. My grandparents were the ones who helped me build a normal life and slowly recover from everything I had experienced. About a year ago, I accidentally came across an article online about my sister's arrest. I followed the case from a distance. In the end, she was convicted of several serious crimes, but instead of prison, she was sent to a secure psychiatric facility. To be honest, reading that brought me a strange sense of relief and safety. A few days after the court's decision, my parents contacted me. At first, they simply asked if we could talk. Then they started mentioning reconciliation. Later, they wrote that they missed me, loved me, and wanted to repair our relationship. Now I find myself in a very strange position. I understand that losing my brother left my parents with deep emotional scars, and many of their decisions were driven by grief and fear of losing another child. At the same time, they left me alone with a dangerous situation for years, pressured me into lying, and failed to protect me when I needed them the most. I don't know if I'm ready to open that door again. Part of me feels sympathy for them, but another part of me honestly has no idea what I could possibly say to them after everything that happened. Well, that's honestly terrifying, especially to go through something like that as a child. Personally, I think it would have completely broken me, and I probably would have cut all contact with my family. The author is incredibly strong, and it's admirable that he managed to recover and move forward. His grandparents also deserve a lot of credit for stepping in and helping him heal when he needed it the most. Now let's hear what other people had to say about this situation. They lost your brother. Due to that, they couldn't imagine taking any action to lose your sister, but they were apparently A-okay with losing you. I'm not even talking about when you were 11 and finally escaped due to CPS involvement. I'm talking about all the years before that where you were genuinely at risk of being killed by your sister, and your parents asked you to accept the risk of dying so they didn't lose her. In fact, once they did lose, they didn't care to reach out until they also lost her. From the sounds of it, their messages are still all about them and their desires. They love you. Funny way of showing it, but okay. They miss you. They want a relationship. They. Where's the, I'm sorry, I realize now that we needed to protect you better and we made mistakes. Where's the, I want what's best for you, my son, even if that means continuing the distance between us? It doesn't exist because just like 10 years ago, they're all about them. Their feelings, their grief, their desires. None of that means that talking to them is the right or wrong choice. Only you can decide that for yourself. I just wanted to lay out the manipulation inherent in their messages for you because it can be easier for outsiders to see it. Exactly. They are only reaching out now because, again, they lost a child. And since they still have one who's out and about and living, they can use that child of theirs as their emotional crutch. This all stems from their grief and refusal to get grief counseling. Until they have done so, no relationship should ever happen, I agree, and would only add that they abused the sister as well by not getting her the psychiatric treatment she obviously desperately needed. They are shit parents all the way around. She might have had a chance at a decent life if they had gotten her help when she was young. I completely agree with these comments. Now, let's move on to the author's update and see what happened next. After reading all the comments, I realized I needed closure. Not reconciliation, not a happy family ending, just answers. So I agreed to meet my parents at a small cafe. They had aged. Honestly, I barely recognized them. My mom started crying almost immediately, and my dad looked like he hadn't slept in days. The first 20 minutes were fairly normal. They told me they missed me, regretted everything, and thought about me every single day. Then my dad said something that literally took my breath away. We have to tell you something we've been hiding for many years. It turned out that after I was removed from their care, doctors conducted a full evaluation of my sister. They told my parents that she posed a serious danger to other people and needed to be placed in a specialized facility. But my parents refused. They decided to take her back home. And that wasn't even the worst part. A few months after I moved in with my grandparents, my sister ran away from home in the middle of the night. She went to my grandparents' house. She was 16 at the time. She had a knife. She stood outside, staring at the window of my bedroom. A neighbor who happened to be walking his dog noticed her and called the police. I was asleep in my room and had absolutely no idea any of this had happened. My parents hid it from me. My grandparents never told me either because they were afraid I would never feel safe again. I could literally feel my hands go cold. I asked them, "Why are you telling me this only now?" My mom started crying even harder. My dad looked down and said, "Because a few weeks ago, your sister talked about you for the first time in years, and she said something." He paused, then he quietly said, "She said that all this time, she thought you were the one who died as a child, not your brother." I don't even know what I felt in that moment. Shock, horror, emptiness. She had spent nearly 2 decades believing that I wasn't supposed to exist at all. And suddenly, I realized something truly terrifying. My entire childhood, I tried to understand why she hated me. Maybe in her mind, I wasn't her brother. Maybe I was a reminder of someone who, in her eyes, should have lived instead of me. At the end of our meeting, my parents said they wanted to try to fix things. They dreamed of becoming a family again, even if it happened slowly, one step at a time. They asked if I would give them a chance and whether we could at least start talking again. I was silent for a few seconds before answering. I said no. I told them that I didn't hate them, but I didn't want anything to do with them anymore. Too much had happened. Too many years had been lost, and I had finally built a life where I felt safe. I also told them that I sincerely hoped they would find peace and learn how to live with everything that had happened, but without me in their lives. My mom started crying. My dad looked as though he had aged another 10 years in a matter of seconds. They were devastated by my answer. But for the first time, they didn't argue, make excuses, or beg me to reconsider. They simply nodded and said they understood. Then we said goodbye, and I walked away without looking back. What I will say is that I think the author made the right choice. I do feel sorry for his parents, but they are ultimately responsible for how their lives turned out. Still, I sincerely hope that all of them find peace and that things work out for each of them in the end. What do you think about this situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know in the comments below.